Hello and welcome to the third of our tribe calls. These happen weekly and this is a shortened version of that hour-long call. So these are the key takeaways. One of the things that we touch upon in this more than once, in fact, is the walking meditation that you can now find on this channel. There are two versions, both exactly the same. Now, the walking meditation has already been described by those that have done it as being rather powerful. This is a walking meditation that begins standing, eyes closed. It's a visualization practice for about 4 or 5 minutes before you then engage in a walking meditation to some quite high vibe music, suggestible language. At some point, we also then have you anchor in a particular emotion and you attribute or associate that same emotion to a future vision. So you're walking towards your future goal. This is about a 25-minute walking meditation. We highly recommend that if you do this, do it with other humans. You can do it on your own, absolutely. I've done it a few times on my own, so has Robert. But if you do it with other humans, you definitely pick up on their energy and it becomes quite an inspirational experience. I recommend if you do like this, if this does resonate, because of course, it's not going to resonate with everybody, but if it does resonate, do it every day. See if you can commit to it for a week of doing this walking meditation every day. If you have a picture in your mind of a goal that you're working towards, this walking meditation will walk you there. Also in this video, Robert discusses a particular Soma breath anecdote. He, over the last weekend, did his level 1 training in Soma breath, so he's now qualified to run certain Soma breath sessions, and he gives this really beautiful anecdotal story of somebody that he helped whilst there. We also discuss in a very enthusiastic fashion, our thoughts and ideas for the next workshop to be held in Nashville. Stand by for that one. If you are in Nashville, this one's going to be big. It's going to be incredibly powerful. It's absolutely going to be led by some pretty energetic, powerful breath work and some visualization techniques, some cold therapy, and it's going to end in one big ecstatic dance type party. I almost said farty. The tribe learning element of yesterday's call was fasting. So we discuss intermittent fasting and long-term fasting, the benefits, and also some anecdotes from both Robert and I as well, having practiced fasting for quite some time. And lastly, we also cover off again the scorecard. This scorecard we are putting together right now. And this is something that when you become part of the program, you will engage using this scorecard. You will also have access to a journal that we're putting together as well. This is a 90-day journal, and this is where you begin to track your progress with the scorecard, tracking your progress against any vices that you want to remove, any good healthy habits that you want to introduce. This program really is something that I think if you commit to and apply discipline to, very quickly you will begin to align with that future vision of you, but also align with your purpose, align with your potential. If you want more out of this life, this is what the 8 decisions is all about. It's all about aligning with that inner you, the real you. And in many respects, that just means getting out your own way, removing all the barriers that are presently in front of you, the distractions, the commitments, and allowing yourself simply to be. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy yesterday's tribe call.
As you know, we have been talking about this daily meditation walk, this walking meditation that Dave has created for us. It's 25 minutes. And honestly, it's the best 25 minutes I have of my day. And one of the experiences, if you have not experienced this walking meditation yet, that is have in your mind a future state that you want to be. And we have talked about it being 10 years into the future. It does not have to be 10 years in the future. I was sitting with someone last week, and they were struggling with this idea of a future state. And I said, this is your future state. It doesn't need to be any time frame other than of your choosing. And she selected 6 months into the future. And she could really be in alignment with that. And so when you're thinking about this future state, it could be an event that you have in the future where you have to maybe speak on stage or do this very important presentation, and you want to go through an experience of experiencing it perfectly done, executed wonderfully with tons of energy, and had the feeling of that success, that could be a way you do that. Part of the walking meditation is also encompassing this capturing a feeling of the past of something that created this either emotion of love or joy, and tying those two together is that ultimately is what you get when you do that walking meditation. We are trying to get you to have the feeling, this emotional energy. I use love as what it helps me do this walking meditation. But when you're going through a breathwork exercise, just like David did with us just a moment ago, that feeling when you created some energy in your body and you're holding your breath and that long exhale and you're holding that breath. I imagine love in that feeling, in this vibrational energy. And you can remind your body of that sensation. And there's something powerful along with that. And it wasn't until I started doing the walking meditation in my daily practice of my breath work, I started to notice that feeling of, it's almost a very Zen-like feeling when you're holding your breath on the long exhale and you're really in this peaceful state, that it feels very similar to that love sensation, that love energy. And so, powerful way to encompass that. I really want to challenge this group. If you're watching me, I want to challenge you in this thought. What if you did the walking meditation every single day for 30 days? Now you're saying to yourself, it seems like crazy. That's a lot of time and energy. Okay. Just start with a moment where you could do it for 7 days. If you did 7 days and then redecide if you're going to commit, is your life improving? Are you creating some level of momentum that you just can't put your finger on it? I am telling this to all of you. The momentum that is happening right now in my world, I don't know what to attribute it to, but I do know that over the last week, I've been doing this walking meditation it's been now, I guess, 9 days I've done this. And I can't explain it to you, but the world for me is just expanding. Every single day, I'm having this new revelation. And I think it has a lot to do with I am optimizing my energy. And part of that is this awareness of the power of using this future state, meaning be into the future and be in love with that future state.
I would add that the walking meditation is powerful on its own. Just doing it on its own, as Robert has been doing over the last few days, is definitely powerful. When you do it with a group of humans, in the same way that when you, as Robert will have experienced this weekend, when you breathe together as humans, there is an extra shot of energy. You're picking up on the collective energy, and I bet you did this weekend, Robert.
Oh my gosh, so Soma breath work. If you've not heard of it, this is how I discovered Dave, by the way. I found one of his breathwork videos, and then that's how we have started. All this thing you're doing right now is all as a result of Soma at the end of the day. And Soma encompasses breathwork, movement, music, and visualization. And what it ultimately does when you do breathwork, you are reaching a state where you're getting your information not from your mind. You're getting your information from your heart. And it's wild. It is a wild experience. And the very first one we did at this retreat, it was about an hour. There was dancing, there was a lot of movement, and then a lot of this meditative state, and then the breath work. And it was intense. And when I say, and it was a beautiful intense, I had some tears, I had some revelations that you just don't get in a normal meditative practice. You get this new level of information that exists in all of us through this. And I'm hoping to take you guys on a journey with this as well. So sorry, Dave, go for it.
No, I was going to say, and in fact, this next workshop that we do, whenever it is, that this is what it's going to be like. And this is how I'm picturing it. I'm sure you are too, Robert, that we begin the workshop with very, very high energy stuff. We move into breath work. Kristen, hopefully we get you involved with some cold therapy bits. There's more breath work later on in the afternoon. By the time you reach midday, you are in such a high vibrational state that when you start talking about your vision of the future, you can just see it clearly. And also you'll be picking up obviously on the emotions of others, on the energy of others. And then we'll end the day with some kind of a ecstatic dance type party. And I think this is how we see that next workshop. I think is, yes, there's going to be some work to be done in the day, but it's work where you're not going to feel like you're working at all, because you're going to be on such a high energy state throughout the day, connecting with other humans, working on your vision. And I it's something that I think Robert and I are getting more and more excited as we get downloads and pictures in our mind about what this will look like. Now, normally at this point, we would talk about, we've mentioned this already. We have introduced you to the idea of a scorecard. And Robert, actually, you mentioned the word reps earlier. And I think this is something we should build into the scorecard. I don't know how you feel about this, but let's imagine within the scorecard, obviously there's going to be time that you've spent in nature. There's going to be time that you've spent working on your mind. There's going to be time that you spent working on your body, time that you've spent connecting and being with others, leading others. And we could consider these in the same way of reps, and this could be, you've done 20 reps today of such and such mindfulness. You've done, and then overall, you've got at the end of the week a collective score about how well you're doing and how you're tracking and progressing with all of this stuff. Because ultimately, when it comes to all of these practices, it's very easy. I've just read a YouTube comment actually from somebody that said, yeah, I started doing cold therapy 6 months ago. My problem though, Dave, is that I start with loads of excitement. Then 3 months down the line, I give up. This happens to everybody because distractions, commitments get in the way. And we start with this incredible energy, but we are incapable of keeping that energy. There are tools, by the way, that will enable you to retain that energy. There's certain methods you can instill and bring into your life that will retain that energy. But I think the beautiful concept of this scorecard is that this is going to be a method of keeping you accountable so that you don't start with huge enthusiasm and then 6 months down the line you give up. You are going to build. You're going to see this progression over time. You're going to feel differently. You're going to realize, hang on a minute, 3 months ago, I would have reacted to that guy that just cut me up in the car. I would have reacted to the person that shoved their supermarket trolley in front of mine, but I don't react that way anymore. And this is our intention. This is all about the 8 decisions, daily practice, daily commitment will elicit incredible reward. So let's move on to a bit of tribe learning. I'm sure there's probably a few here that have experimented with fasting. There will also be a few that perhaps haven't. And today's little bit of tribe learning, we will be discussing fasting and its benefits. There are lots of ways of fasting. We're just going to talk about 2 of them. One of them is intermittent fasting, also referred to as time-restricted eating. And the other is something that we would refer to as long-term fasting. Now, I would describe myself as a biohacker. And a biohacker is somebody that chooses to DIY their own biology. Now, I don't always get it right, but my intention by being a biohacker is that if I can reduce the need to go to see a traditional doctor, then not only am I helping the NHS in this country by not wasting their time, but also I'm beginning to figure out what's going on in my body and hopefully help to mitigate certain future issues. Now, when I was last in Nashville, I turned up there already a lot lower weight than I normally am. I'd been fasting quite a bit because I'd been suffering from a gut issue, an inflamed stomach. And actually, I just want to I want to shout out to Kristen. Thank you for, thank you, first of all, just for the time that you gave me at Urban Sweat. That was incredible. For those that have still yet to go and experience it, I highly recommend you get down to Urban Sweat. I can't remember the address. Sorry, Kristen, but it's somewhere in Nashville. And there's And there, not only have you got the cold therapy, you've got red light, you've got sauna. It's incredible. It's brilliant at reducing inflammation and a whole host of other things. But also, Kristen, you gave me a jar of this parasitic cleanse. And I think that might have helped, I'm certainly much better. There's still work that I need to do on this inflammation, but I'm certainly much better. I'm now doing less fasting in order to regain some of the weight that I prefer to have on me. I'm doing a lot more exercise. I've restarted taking essential amino acids, creatine, and various other bits and pieces. But when it comes to fasting, I would say this is probably one of the simplest, but also most powerful biohacks that you can utilize to optimize both your mental and physical performance. So let's move on to the biology of fasting. In fact, sorry, before we get to the biology, let's just talk about this. So I've put here stress again, because I know that in one of my other tribe learning sections, I spoke about stress. I definitely spoke about stress at the workshop in Nashville. And through the research that I've done, I now understand, and I'm totally aligned with the fact that all stress is good. The only time when stress is not good is when we overload it and we don't allow our body time to adapt and change and grow. So fasting is causing a stress on the body, but it's a good stress, and it's a healthy form of stress if you aren't already stressed. So let's say you've gone through a bout of 3 or 4 days of work stress. That wouldn't be a good time for you to fast. Your body's already trying to combat that. It's already mentally drained, physically drained. It wouldn't be a good time for you, in my opinion, to engage in some form of fasting. But what you're doing here is, through fasting, you are challenging your biology to respond with an adaptive stress response. And that's that good bit of stress response that will then create a cascade of biochemical changes. It will boost alertness, it will boost focus, it will enhance your metabolism, or rather increase metabolism, it will give you energy, it will cause adaptation, as I've mentioned, and over time, it will actually improve the resilience, your overall resilience. So what you're doing really with fasting, of course, is you're just limiting your calorific intake. But as I've mentioned there, just choose the right time to do it. Now, anecdotally, I started fasting back in 2018. 2017, I started to do cold therapy and breath work. So when I combined cold therapy, breath work with fasting, it was a little bit too much initially on the body, because I was fasting every day. I was doing what's called intermittent fasting, and I'll describe that to you in a second. And what I discovered was that through the fasting, the cold therapy, I lost about 1 stone in weight. What's that in your language? Well, if anybody knows, do shout out. But it was quite a bit of weight. Now, perhaps I should say this, perhaps I shouldn't. If your intention is to lose weight, that would be one way of doing it. You're going to lose it very quickly. It may be unhealthy for you to do that, so I should add that as well. So just be careful with it. Like anything, fasting is something that you don't want to go all in straight away. I've got a habit of doing that with anything that I try. I tend to go all in. That can lead to negative results. So just be careful if you're going to do fasting. So intermittent fasting, just to cover that, is when you are extending the window of time of you not eating. So let's say, for example, if I do an intermittent fast, which I'll do nowadays, I do maybe 2 or 3 days a week, then I would stop eating at, say, 7 o'clock in the evening, and then not eat again until midday or 1 o'clock the next day. So when you think about that, most of that time is when you're asleep anyway. And all you're doing, therefore, is skipping breakfast and extending the time before you then eat. So when you think about it like that, it's pretty easy. It's not that difficult to do. What I would recommend, though, if you're new to it, is don't necessarily wait until 1 o'clock, but maybe the first time you try this, start eating around 9 or 10 the next day. The following day, if you want to try it again, wait until 10 o'clock, and then maybe try again the next week. Build up slowly. Let's talk about the biology. So when you eat food, the glucose stores in your liver as glycogen. Now, after about 10 or 12 hours, that glycogen then depletes and you start burning fats. So therefore, let's say you've eaten some food, you're then fasting for 12 hours. After 12 hours, your body then decides, okay, I don't have any more glycogen to find as a source of energy. So glucose goes out the window and it then starts to seek energy from fats. This is the start of the real benefits of fasting, because fats convert to ketone bodies. So this is when you've probably heard of the keto diet. And when your fats convert to ketones, these are used by your brain's neurons and neurons around the body as an energy source. So this becomes brain fuel. Now, ketones not only positively change your brain, they improve, therefore, your capacity to learn, they improve your memory, they improve your overall brain health. Things like BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, I think that's called. It's one of the many things that starts to improve in your brain. When we so what we're talking about here is the metabolic switch is called ketosis. So when we switch from glucose to ketones, it's called ketosis. So some of these terms I'm sure you will be familiar with when you've either experimented with the keto diet or you've heard other people talk about the keto diet. Now, why do we want to use fats instead of carbs for fuel? Well, given that fat is preferred as a source of fuel for the brain, remember the brain is fueled by fats. So, for example, let me give you an example of how I also biohack that philosophy. When I have a cup of coffee in the morning, I have a strong black coffee, but I add butter to it. I add butter and salt. Sometimes I add MCT oil, which is medium chain triglyceride. But the point is, when you add fat to your fuel, then you're getting this extra surge and source of energy from the fat that goes straight to your brain. So it becomes a really efficient use of coffee and a really efficient use of energy. Now, what's really interesting, I don't know if we have any athletes here, and I hope that whoever rewatches this or watches it in the future when it's up on YouTube, there will be some athletes. There's been a lot of research into this. And previously, I think a lot of athletes would have consumed certain glucose products to extend their runs if they're an endurance athlete. Athletes that have become fat adapted, either through regular fasting or the keto diet, have the ability to use fat as fuel in long endurance races. What's incredible about that is because of the efficiency of that fuel source, the athletes can go much longer than other athletes that are squeezing down gels or eating other sugary glucose products to keep them going. Fat adapted athletes don't need that. They can just keep going because they have enough efficient fuel source in their body. There's some I won't go into it now because I'm just looking at the time, but there are some really interesting stats to do with how we oxidize the fat, and also the comparison between how much extra grams of glucose a traditional athlete would require versus that of a fat adapted athlete. So the next bit is really, really interesting for those that are super interested in fasting. Robert, I know you've done, what's the longest fast you've done so far?
Yeah, so I did a 3-day fast
Right.
And it's a 3-day water fast. And what strikes me about this fasting idea, when you think of the 8 decisions, is which one of the 8 does it matter to? Obviously, I optimize my energy, right? But the other one is I'm not my mind.
Yeah.
Because what happens when you do a fast for the first time? Let's just say you skip a meal. How do you feel? What does your mind tell you? Oh boy, you better get to eating. You're starving. Oh, this is dangerous, right? And if you can skip a meal, and then imagine skipping 2. What is your mind saying? Oh my gosh, I have not eaten. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Oh no. And I will tell you, I've done intermittent fasting, and I've done the no breakfast, no lunch, and just eat at dinner and just 1 meal a day. I've done that. And I will tell you, when you get into it, you just seem to think more clearly. And when I skipped over to like another day, the very next day, so I had skipped a whole 24 hours, I started getting a headache. And so I looked online, and you know what the remedy was? Eat some salt. Headache goes away.
Yeah.
I felt incredible that day 2 and day 3. And it's just a matter of, we need to, we are not our minds. Our mind is going to tell us something that is not true. Most of us, now I can't speak for all of us, but most of us have enough stored fat that we will last a long time. I know people that have fasted for 40 days on just water. It is possible. That's dangerous now, but we have the ability to last a lot longer without food. And it's to Dave's comment, Dave is a biohacker. We should all honestly be biohacking ourselves. And as a daily practice, every single, you should just be aware what you just ate this. And then what was the outcome? Did you feel good? Is this the right food for you? And these are things that we just have some awareness to.
Yeah. Yeah. With you there. Totally. In fact, I saw a kinesiologist the other day, and she was saying, what I want you to do now, Dave, is when you're about to eat something, hold that food near to your heart. And I want you to notice, and I want you to now start beginning to have a connection to whether you think your intuition, your inner wisdom is telling you to eat that food or not, which I thought was quite a beautiful way of looking at it. I just want to cover this off very quickly. So, Robert, therefore, you would have absolutely, first of all, experienced autophagy. Now, autophagy, for those that don't know, is something amazing. Autophagy is when good cells in your body eat bad cells. So if you want to do a bit of a cleanse, all you got to do is 24 hours of no eating. And the good cells in your body start a bit like Pac-Man, going around chomping sort of half-dead zombie cells, or the sort of the really unhealthy cells. So that is incredible. With the cold therapy, just to add something about fat there, when you're doing cold therapy, Kristen, I know you know this, what you're doing is you are increasing your brown fat. Brown fat is good fat. And the amazing thing about brown fat is that when you grow it, and bearing in mind children have abundance of brown fat, when you grow brown fat, it sends a signal to the brain to make use of the white fat for fuel. So by doing cold therapy and fasting, you can see how it accelerates weight loss. The brown fat sends this signal and it starts eating away at the white fat. What's amazing, of course, for us men in particular, is that we collect a lot of white fat in our bellies. So if we do cold therapy and fasting, we're going to lose a lot in our belly very, very quickly. But what I just love that whole autophagy idea. Second thing I really want to point out is human growth hormone levels are up to 5 times as high once we get to 48 hours of fasting. Now, this is really important for longevity. It's really important for preserving lean muscle mass, and it reduces fat tissue accumulation as well. 54 hours, we start to boost insulin sensitivity. And at 72 hours, we get an upgrade on our immune system. Now, I'm going to be totally honest. I've not made it to 72 hours before. But now that I'm reminding myself of the fact that you get this immune system upgrade, I'm thinking maybe I should.
If I could add to that, Dave,
Mm.
if anyone is watching this and wondering what it feels like to be completely focused, to be able to think at the optimum level, to have the energy to problem solve and make the right decision, I will tell you, when you are in that 2-day fast and you haven't eaten, wow, you would be amazed at how energized you are. And with more practice, and when I say practice, meaning when you do these, my intent is to do a 3-day fast every quarter. And you will get better at teaching your mind that this is good, that what you're going through with not having food is a good thing, actually. The energy only is going to increase, and you get a taste of what is possible. And it's also just another exercise in good willpower.
Mm.
When we are stretching our willpower muscle, it is a muscle. In fact, it is a trainable muscle to know that you can overcome hard things. To be practicing that, and saying no to food for a couple of days is absolutely possible.
Yeah. And when you think about it, not too dissimilar to how we've lived most of the time on this planet. It's really only in the last 50, 100 years that we've had immediate access to food whenever we want it. And that's not good for us. For the most part, we've lived a life where we've had to fast naturally because there was no food there. So, I think getting used to that, getting our bodies reused to that again is only a good thing. Just a few tips now. Prepare, if you're new to fasting, about a week before, then I would say eat clean. Because if your body is just totally loaded with glucose and then it's going to make your fast a lot harder, because when it gets hard, as in when your body starts to, send you signals that you think you need to act on, which of course you don't need to act on, your immediate response is going to be eat sugar. So if you can go for, say, a week at least of just eating clean, reducing processed foods, reducing sugar, you're going to make this much easier. Build up to long-term fasts, as I've mentioned already. Take it easy. You don't have to go all in. Just build it up slowly over time. Track it. I think, Robert, you track it, don't you? Your fasts. I think you've got a tool.
I just track in terms of the time I last my 8 meal. That's as much tracking I do, and I journal the experience as I'm going through it. And also, when I say track the experience, if I have a feeling, one thing that maybe is a tip that maybe is helpful for you if you're trying to stay off social media. We have this instant reaction to go into when we're bored or we have a break, to just jump on social. But what if you were to jump into your journal and just document the feelings that you're having that pop up? Like, I feel like I want to eat. Well, maybe I noticed, I feel like I want to eat after I've been stressed a little bit, and I'm a stress eater. And so acknowledging that and knowing that, that's another example of not in my mind. I'm reminding myself that the body's sending these mixed signals to me sometimes that I get to make a choice. But tracking in terms of just putting it in the journal, that's how I track.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, I must admit, I'm much more of a pen and paper tracker than I am an app. But for people that are into apps, there are free apps out there that will track your progress when it comes to fasting. So when you do a fast, as Robert did, he used a water-only fast. That's what most people do. You can, however, have, for example, that butter coffee. That won't break your fast. There's no glucose in it. The fat from the coffee, if you add butter to it, will actually make it easier to extend the fast. So that's something to be aware of. And then the last thing is, as I've put here, dismount. When you refuel, again, don't go all in. you've just, especially if you had a long fast, if you have a long fast and then you think, I know I want steak, your body's not going to like it. And I would recommend bone broth as being a really good, say, first meal. Get some bone broth down. You can get some really good quality bone broth now online. I use an Australian company, I think, or Kiwi, called Best Bone Broth. So it's pasture raised cattle, and it's really, really good. So there we are. I hope that was useful.
Dave, thank you for sharing that. Hope you guys have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. Take care.